computer RAM is hiding a secret. It's rich with gold. Some you can't see, and some you definitely can. These gold fingers are plated with a thick, high-purity layer of the yellow metal. To get this gold, all you need is your local hardware store, creating what's often referred to as poor man's nitric acid. Today I have 500 grams of these fingers, and I estimate there's slightly over 3 grams of pure gold buried in this pile. At today's prices, that's about $500. We'll start by submerging the fingers in distilled water. I'm adding plenty of water to hold the metals. Cold nitric has other salts in solution, so there needs to be plenty of room to hold the metals that we are going to dissolve. Next, I'm going to add about 200 milliliters of sulfuric acid. This is Rooto. It's a drain cleaner. I get at Ace Hardware. As always, we're going to safely add our acid to the water, not the other way around. Finally, we're going to add about 8 ounces of potassium nitrate. This is Spectracide Stump Remover from Lowe's. I'm going to put this in and then turn on the heat. These ingredients are going to form a dilute nitric acid that's going to release our gold. The goal here isn't to dissolve all the base metals, it's to dissolve enough of the nickel and copper underneath the gold to release the foils. The first reaction is completed. Going to take a look here and see where we are in terms of getting the foils released and see if we need more chemicals. You can see many of them are still attached there, so time for round 2. Rather than add more to the existing beaker, I'm going to go ahead and decant and filter this solution and start fresh. This will allow me to get a head start on filtering this solution and any foils that come over in the decanting. As you can see, a fair number of the foils have already released. Alright, we now have more water and sulfuric acid in there. Going to add more potassium nitrate and let this go to work. I do like to give it a stir around, get that nitrate and sulfuric mixed in well with the fingers, kind of get a jump start on forming the nitric acid. After about 3 hours we're done. This time all the fingers are free and sitting on the bottom. We're going to go ahead and decant the solution again. This time I'm also going to rinse with distilled water a few times, get as much of the cold nitric out of the fingers and the foils and the beaker as possible and into our decanted solution for filtering. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and decant this through the same filter we used for the first half of the solution. You can see in the bottom we're starting to get some crystals formed. That's from that salts of the potassium. We'll have to deal with that in one extra step that we otherwise wouldn't have to do if we were using straight nitric in just a little bit. Now for the slightly messy part. Some of the foils are free, but the bulk are still tangled in with the fiberglass fingers. To clear them out, I'm using a colander, 5-gallon bucket, and a power washer attachment for my garden hose. I'm going to start slow and I'm going to blast those foils off of the fingers and into the bucket. See, all of the foils are gone. All we have is the barren fingers. Going to add a little bit of rinse aid to the bucket, make sure everything sinks down to the bottom. And then we're going to go ahead and decant off the water into a second bucket, leaving the foils behind. And then after that, I'm going to take the foils and put them into a beaker. Back to our filter. The one thing with using cold nitric is the salt. They're very soluble in warm, hot water, but this thing is cool that will come out of the water and form crystals. I'm pouring hot water into the filter to dissolve as many as I can. See, we've got some out, but there's still some of those blue crystals in there in with our foils. I'm going to go ahead and transfer everything from this beaker, or the filter itself, into a beaker And I'm going to add some water to that, put it up on the heat. This will let us get all those crystals dissolve and give us nice clean foils to work with. We'll add a little extra water. A fair amount is dissolved, so we're going to go ahead and decant this off and see where we're at. Just a little bit left, so we'll give it one more shot. That green color tells us we've got more stuff dissolved. Looks like all of it. We'll decant this out and put our gold foils in with the bulk of them in our nice clean beaker. Now before we dissolve these foils, I'm going to transfer things to a smaller beaker. I'm actually going to do this in a couple of steps. What this will do was not only get rid of the excess solution, but we'll pull out any of the small bits of fiberglass and fiberglass powder that are still coming along. We won't get it all, but the much as we can get out, the easier filtration is later. And see what I'm looking at here as I do this. You see that kind of dirty brown water? It's not shiny gold foils, stuff on top there. That's a little bits of fiberglass that I'm trying to get rid of as much of it as I can. Finally, now we're going to go ahead and get our foils into the beaker where we'll dissolve our gold and put it into solution. One final decant, and we're ready to go. So one of the questions we ask is, how do we put our gold in solution without nitric acid to form aqua regia? Well, what we do is we start with our hydrochloric acid, and then we're going to use everyday household bleach. This is an oxidizing agent, and it will do the job just as well for gold foils. This won't work for karat gold and thicker pieces, but these gold foils are small, and they have a lot of surface area. This doesn't need to be up on the heat to work. Bleach will do a great job at room temperature. I'm not exactly sure how much I'm going to need, so I'm going to start small and keep adding until we get all of our gold foils dissolved. So it's been about 15 minutes. A lot of our foils are gone. We're going to add some more bleach, but before we do that, we're just going to do a quick stannous chloride test. Make sure we have gold in solution. And there it is. That dark stain tells us we have gold in solution. So we're going to add a little more bleach, a drop or two at a time, till all the foils are gone. So our foils have dissolved. See a lot of stuff floating around in there. This is mostly that fiberglass powder I was talking about. It absorbs, it expands. We're going to end up having to rinse solution out of that when we do our filtration. So we're set up to filter. Going to go ahead and put it through as many times as we need to get crystal clear solution. The one advantage of that fiberglass is it usually doesn't take a ton of times to get there. Spray down the filter. Going to try to get as much of that solution to dislodge from the fiberglass pieces as well as the filter into our beaker. That's gold. I'd rather get it now than when I process filter papers later. Let's see how we did. You can see there's our filter paper. There's that fiberglass pieces. Going to set that aside and see what our solution looks like. I think we are one and done when it comes to filtering. You can see that solution is about as clear as you could expect it to be. So we're going to go ahead and transfer it to another beaker and get prepared to precipitate our gold. So we have a very clear solution. Going to use sodium metabisulfite. This is Stump out by Bonide. Different than the stump remover we were using earlier. Different chemical. This will precipitate our gold out of solution. You can See that color change? That's our gold falling out of solution. That brown mud is really pure gold. A quick stannous chloride test to see if we've gotten all the gold. See, we have just a slight amount of purple color there. So we're going to hit it with one more spoonful of sodium metabisulfite to stump out. That white foam is a good indicator we have now gotten all the gold out. I'm pretty comfortable we have, so I'm going to go ahead and spray this down and set it up on low heat to help it settle. So we aren't done yet. The gold is settled and it's time to clean it up. First, I'm just going to decant the solution off into my temporary gold waste storage, capture any bits of gold powder still suspended in solution. Then I'm going to go ahead and rinse a few times with distilled water to clean out any of the excess acids. To really clean it then, we're going to add some hydrochloric acid and we're going to boil it for a little bit. This will pull out even more impurities. We've been boiling for about 10 minutes. We're going to pull this off the heat. Decant off our hydrochloric acid. And then we're going to do several more distilled water washes before we dry our powder. All right, how do we do? I was expecting a little over 3 grams of pure gold. Our final weight is 3.11 grams, so that's great. I'm going to actually hang on to this powder, combine it with my next batch of fingers coming up in my next video, so stay tuned for that. Hope you enjoyed this refine. Remember, if you can't get nitric acid or don't want to, local hardware store is just as good. A couple of extra steps and a few extra hours, but the gold is just as shiny. If you enjoyed this refine, hit that like button and subscribe. If you have questions, thoughts, suggestions, drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.